There is a kind of power that no one gives you. You cannot inherit it. You cannot marry into it. You cannot wait for it to arrive. You have to take it, piece by piece, year by year, in a world that was built specifically to stop you. Wu Zetian took it anyway. She took all of it. She became the only woman in 4,000 years of Chinese history to rule as emperor. Not empress, not regent, not consort, emperor. In her own name, on her own throne. This is her story. China, the 7th century. The Tang dynasty was one of the most magnificent empires on earth. Its capital, Chang'an, was the largest city in the world. Its poets were writing verse that would be memorized for 1,000 years. Its roads stretched across Asia, connecting China to Persia, to India, to the edges of the known world. And at the center of all of it, the imperial palace. A city within a city. A world with its own rules, its own language, its own dangers. Wu Zetian entered that world at 14 years old. Her father had been a government official, a man of moderate standing who died when she was young. Her mother recognized something in her daughter that most people in 7th century China would not have known what to do with. Intelligence, ambition, a mind that did not stop. She was educated. She was taught to read and write and play music. Things most girls of her time were not taught at all. And then she was sent to the palace as a concubine of Emperor Taizong, 5th rank, one of dozens, maybe hundreds. She was not meant to be important. She was not meant to be remembered. She was 14 years old, and the world had already decided what she was. It had decided wrong. Now, a word of honesty before we go deeper. Wu Zetian is one of the most debated figures in all of Chinese history. The records we have were written mostly by men who despised her, Confucian scholars who believed, with total conviction, that a woman ruling China was a violation of the natural order. They wrote about her as a monster, a seductress, a murderer, a tyrant. History has a way of painting powerful women with a very particular brush. Some of what they wrote was likely true. Some was almost certainly exaggerated. Some may have been invented entirely. The truth of Wu Zetian, like the truth of most people who threaten the powerful, lies somewhere in the gap between what her enemies wrote and what her achievements actually show. And her achievements show something extraordinary. So let us tell the story. When Emperor Taizong died, the concubines of the imperial household faced a grim fate. Tradition held that when an emperor passed, his concubines were to retire to a Buddhist convent, their heads shaved, their silk robes replaced with rough cloth, their lives reduced to prayer and silence. Wu Zetian was 26 years old. She went to the convent, and then she came back. What happened between those two moments is the subject of legend and debate. What we know is this. Emperor Taizong had a son named Gaozong. Gaozong became emperor. And somehow, through intelligence, through connection, through whatever it was that Wu Zetian had that no one else could replicate, she found her way back into the imperial court. Gaozong was devoted to her, absolutely, completely, in a way that shocked the court and scandalized the scholars. She became his favorite consort, then his empress. And that is when the real story begins. Because Wu Zetian was not content to be powerful through someone else. She was not content to whisper advice and hope it was taken. She was not content to rule from behind a curtain. She wanted to govern. She learned how. Thoroughly. She read policy documents. She studied military strategy. She understood the bureaucracy of the Tang dynasty, its departments, its rivalries, its pressure points, better than most of the men who ran it. When Gaozong suffered a series of strokes that left him incapacitated, Wu Zetian stepped in. She handled state correspondence. She made administrative decisions. She received officials. She functioned, in every practical sense, as the ruler of China. The Confucian scholars hated it. They wrote memorials, formal complaints, to the throne. They argued that a woman in power was a violation of heaven's order. They cited precedent. They cited tradition. They cited everything they could think of. Wu Zetian outmaneuvered them. Every time, she built a network of loyal officials. She promoted people based on talent and loyalty rather than aristocratic birth. A radical idea in a world where who your family was determined everything. She created new examination systems that gave capable men from ordinary backgrounds a path to government service. In doing so, she built something that would serve her for decades, a base of power that belonged to her, not to the old aristocratic families who had run China for centuries. When Gaozong died in 683, Wu Zetian did not disappear into mourning. She ruled as regent, first for one son, then for another. And when it became clear that her sons were either unwilling or unable to govern effectively, when the structure she had built required someone at its center who actually understood how to lead, Wu Zetian made a decision that no one in Chinese history had ever made. In 690, she declared herself emperor, not empress, emperor. The title itself, Huangdi, had never been held by a woman. She was 65 years old. She named her dynasty Zhou. She moved the capital. She reformed the bureaucracy. She expanded the civil service examination system so that even more talented men from ordinary families could rise to serve the state. She commissioned Buddhist art and temples on a scale that had never been seen. She connected her rule to Buddhist tradition in ways that gave it spiritual legitimacy outside the Confucian system that had never had any use for her. She fought wars and mostly won them. Her armies expanded Tang borders. Her generals were effective because she understood how to choose them. She also used her secret police ruthlessly. She encouraged denunciations. She destroyed rivals. She was not gentle with enemies. But here is what the historians who condemned her could never quite explain away. China, under Wu Zetian, functioned. The harvests were recorded. The roads were maintained. The examination system identified and promoted talent. Corruption was punished. The empire held. She ruled for 15 years as emperor. In 705, at the age of 80, she was finally forced to abdicate by a court coup. A group of officials and nobles who had never accepted her. She was old. She was ill. She could not fight what was coming. She stepped down. She died the same year. In her will, she asked that her grave marker be left blank. No inscription, no list of achievements, no official title. She left the stone empty. Whether that was humility or defiance or something else entirely, we do not know. But the image of it is arresting. The woman who had written herself into history at every turn, choosing, at the end, to let the silence speak. The blank stone has been interpreted for 13 centuries. It still is. 5 lessons from the life of Wu Zetian. Lesson 1. The room that was not built for you is still a room you can enter. Wu Zetian entered a world that had no place for what she was. The palace was not designed for her kind of ambition. The government was not designed to be run by her kind of person. She entered anyway. She learned the rules. She used them, and then she changed them. The systems that exclude you are also the systems that, if you understand them deeply enough, can be navigated from the inside. Lesson 2. Knowledge is the only power no one can take away. Wu Zetian spent decades learning policy, history, bureaucracy, military strategy. She knew more about how the Tang dynasty actually worked than almost anyone in it. That knowledge was her foundation. When everything else shifted, when emperors died and sons failed and coups were attempted, the knowledge remained. What you know, you keep. Lesson 3. Build loyalty that is yours, not borrowed. She did not rely on the old aristocratic networks that had always run China. She built her own. She promoted people who were loyal to her specifically, people whose rise was connected to her, whose future depended on her continued success. When you build something, build it so that the loyalty runs to you, not to the circumstance that put you in the room. Lesson 4. The people who fear your power will write the history. Do not let them write your story inside your own head. The scholars who hated Wu Zetian wrote about her as a monster because a woman with her power frightened them. She could not control what they wrote, but she kept governing. She kept making decisions. She left behind an empire that functioned. What others say about you to diminish you is their fear talking. Your job is not to manage their fear. Your job is to do the work. Lesson 5. The blank stone is sometimes the most powerful statement. Wu Zetian ruled longer and more effectively than most emperors in Chinese history. At the end, she asked for no inscription, no summary, no defense. She let the record speak without words. Sometimes the most confident thing you can do is trust that what you built is enough. And stop explaining yourself to people who were never going to understand anyway. She entered the palace at 14 as a concubine ranked 5th. She left it at 80, as the only woman in Chinese history to call herself emperor. She asked for a blank stone. The stone has been famous for 13 centuries, because that is what happens when someone refuses to be defined by anyone but themselves. The world remembers. This has been Legends of the Ancient World, an Alivinci University History Channel production.